Hey guys, Monostar Leatherknuckles here. Conventions. Maybe it's like attending them, whether they're a gaming con, comic con, or a furry con if that's your thing. It's a fun experience to be in a large environment with people who share your similar interests. I myself love attending cons such as SAC Anime, a time where I can dress up as Alucard or Detective Pikachu and around interacting with fellow cosplayers, and even at times getting to meet with other voice actors of some of my favorite anime and video games. However, of course, with many things, there are beloved cons held in high regards, such as SAC Anime, and of course, Anime Expo in LA. There are also cons that lie in infamy for things such as mistreating their guests or looking the other way from troublesome individuals, such as the infamous Anime Matsuri in Texas, where its co-founder John Lay has many allegations against him that range from him making unwanted sexual comments to downright sexually harassing his female guests and attendees. There is an entire site if you're interested that lists all of the con's grievances, and Turkey Tom does cover Lay and Anime Matsuri as part of his The Anime Degenerates video, so I'll post a link in the description for both of those if you're curious. However, if you read the title, then you know that Anime Matsuri is not today's main topic, but it's another con in the good old Bible Belt of Texas, Weebcon in Irving, Texas. It's a con relatively new, starting in 2021. I personally never even heard of the con until more recently, mainly because I don't live in Texas. Well, just recently, the con had its fifth convention, and immediately right after, dozens among dozens of cosplayers and idols came out discussing how the staff at Weebcon treated them ruthlessly and essentially tried to scam many of the talents out of large amounts of money. If it wasn't for Instagram idol Ghibli Scribblies, I would have never discovered just how deep this rabbit hole goes, with the con having a long history of screwing over its guests, whether they be idols or just con attendees. Their treatment towards all of them is completely unacceptable. Ghibli, who I will refer to as Chi to keep things more simple, has a server with over 100 members, all ranting about their misadventures at Weebcon, and I was able to find some interesting info and speak with members, many of which were idols who helped the con attract crowds, because that's the kind of what idols do. So every con does everything they can to secure at least one idol. However, there is so much information that I can't cover this all in one video, so I'll leave a document in the description, and also release footage of me talking with some of the attendees directly, discussing in detail how Weebcon failed them. The footage I'll be showing comes from a TikTok video from one of the idols who were screwed over by Weebcon, Chrysalia. They post neat content, so check it out whenever you have the time. Also send a link to their page along with the full video where they discuss their experience with the staff at Weebcon.
Home Friday morning at 6:30 a.m. for what would be a 6-hour drive up to Irving. While we were on our way to the convention, I kept myself up to date by reading what was going on within the Weebcon Discord server, which I have since been removed from. We will get into that later. The convention was meant to open at 2 p.m. on Friday, but before the convention even opened, the chaos had already began. From my experience of going to anime cons, venues normally have multiple lines to let people in as well as multiple tables for bag check. That sadly was not the case for Weebcon. On Friday, before the convention opened, you had to go inside the venue to get your badge and then go back outside and line up and wait for bag check, all in one ginormous line. You still had to wait in this line, even if you didn't have a bag. There was only one line letting everybody in. For a smaller convention, this might have been alright, but Weebcon normally has more than 20,000 people throughout the entire weekend, meaning that a single line was hours long. Once myself, my husband, and my friend arrived, we had to wait in line for around an hour and a half. Thankfully, that was one of the shorter times, as most people were waiting upwards of 2 to 3 hours in line. Once we got into the building, however, we noticed that there were only about 2 to 3 people checking bags. It all started to make sense why the line was so slow. After having our bags checked, we went into the main convention space and entered the sea of chaos. There were so many people, and it made the convention center very, very cramped. I heard that this was our first year at this new convention center, and it was honestly a downgrade. There were yet again more lines for things, including the escalators, the elevators, and the dealer's hall, as well as the artist alley. I'm someone who loves to walk around the dealer's hall and take my time looking at the tables, but sadly, I just wasn't able to as the crowd kept moving, and if we were to stop, we would literally risk being trampled by the sea of people if we didn't follow the flow. Now, for a normal attendee who isn't a part of the convention itself, long lines and crowded spaces may have been tolerable, but for those of us who were a part of the Idol Fest, this convention was one big nightmare.
One of the key issues with the con was the massive amounts of long lines and crowding. Crowding is an issue that every con must deal with. I attend VacaCon, which is a much smaller con compared to SAC Anime, and Exhibitor Hall does have a big issue with crowding. It's not the worst crowding, but it's definitely a fire hazard, and if a fire did actually break out, needless to say that there will be people who will end up getting trampled on. Meanwhile, with large cons like SAC Anime, you have many lines done in a large environment to help ensure that crowding is at a minimum and people aren't stepping on any toes. But apparently for Weebcon, they had most of everything in one massive line, and everyone would take about 1 to 3 hours to get through. I've been in a line at Disneyland Space Mountain that was shorter than that. 3 freaking hours. All while this is another slap in the face. I really plan on showing this clip later, but screw it. This needs to be mentioned right now, because this is just straight up ridiculous.
Did the application for an Idol Fest, so they obviously wanted us there. They didn't even comp our badges, meaning all of us had to pay out of pocket to be here. And because of this, we needed to make some money back, or else why would we even come? It wouldn't even be worth it. I can't really speak on everyone else's behalf on how much they spent to be there, but for myself, my husband, and my friend, we spent over $260 on badges alone, and over $600 on the hotel. Normally, when you go to a convention, as a performer, you want to make more money than you spent going there, because you need to make a profit. As an idol that's only been debuted for around a year now, it's just a risk you take sometimes that you might not make everything back that you spent. Normally, at bigger conventions, I make around $200 to $300 on a good day, so I thought maybe I'll be able to make this much when I go to Weebcon. But sadly, when we woke up on Sunday after the chaotic mess that was Saturday, I myself, as well as my husband, who is my manager, thought that going to the meet and greet only for 30 minutes with the amount of merch that we had would not be worth it for us. Now, most Kaigai idols have a small selection of merch. They might have checkies, pin lights, photo prints, and usually that's about it. There's a small range of things to choose from. For me, I had a lot to sell, and I mean a lot. I had a giant case of merch that I had to lug over there, and us only being able to sell for 30 minutes with the amount of things we had, it just would not have been worth it, sadly. So we packed up and left around 12:30 on Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. These people had to pay the con itself just so they could perform. They had to pay to work. I was able to speak with another idol who also confirmed that they had to spend $80 because the con couldn't even have done the bare minimum and cover these idols' tickets, despite the fact that they themselves wanted these idols to attend their con. Hearing this literally makes the people running this thing selling Mr. Krabs with how greedy these scumbags are.
Started on Friday when our time slot for the festival was changed from 11 to 1 to 12 to 2. Sometimes changes with time need to happen, but the organizers weren't made aware of the changes until they themselves checked the schedule and saw that a change had been made. We were also supposed to have sound check from 10 to 11, but that had been fully removed as well. So our festival would be held later, and we wouldn't have a sound check. As a singer, sound check is vital to ensuring that I am ready for my performance. It also ensures that we have ample time to get everything ready. Because we didn't have a sound check, our performance time ran over by a few minutes. We'll get into that later. On Saturday, we were told that we couldn't get into our venue until 12 p.m., which was when the doors opened for attendees. So we were given a panel room to practice in, but practicing there was nearly impossible as the room was filled with chairs and had no AV equipment. Because we had to take down the chairs and set up a laptop for music, we basically only had 30 minutes to practice. I'm glad that everyone else was able to get some sort of practice in, but I wasn't able to as we were running out of time and needed to leave. We left and headed to the venue early as we wanted to make sure that we were the first to be let in at 12. When we got there, the workers at the venue wondered why we weren't there at 11, because actually, we did have a sound check. The venue told Weebcon that our sound check was from 11 to 12, but Weebcon chose not to tell us.
Another huge issue with the con was how Weebcon gave their models bare-bones treatment, gave them very little information, and didn't give them much time to practice for their performance. As you can probably guess, when you're a guest performing at a venue, be it a con or concert, you want to have as much information as possible, such as when you're expected to perform, how much time you have to practice, and when you can perform a sound check to ensure that everything runs smooth and snappy. However, the people running Weebcon really gave them any of this stuff, but however, they were still able to run mostly smoothly. However, as you probably guess, since the video isn't over, the blows only keep going, and it only gets worse from here.
Because we were now late for our sound check that we didn't even know we had, our festival started late, meaning we were now running over time. Thankfully, the festival got started up, and everyone did amazing. I ask that you please go show some support to the lovely idols that performed, as they could really use some love after such a shit show. I was the last performer, which I was really excited for. But a few minutes before my performance, I was told that I would need to cut a song from my performance, as we were running over time. I had drove 6 hours to be at this fucking convention, and now needed to cut a song from my set list, all because this convention didn't know how to get their shit in order. I'm sorry for my use of profanity, but this festival was the only reason I was even there. I had spent over $800 to be here, only to be cut short. But even though I cut one song, we still ran over time, and because we ran over by 2 minutes, the staff of Weebcon threatened to charge the Lavender Dream Idols $5,000 for going over the time limit, which only happened because of the convention itself.
Someone pulled to a back room and told us that because we came in early and started and ended late, that they're going to charge us $5,000 if needed in the next couple weeks.
Throughout the entire course of the weekend, this convention had done nothing but treat us and all of the other idols like garbage. If you don't want an idol fest and it's too much for you to handle, don't accept the application. Idols and idol fests are the backbone to a good convention. There are so many people that drive hours just to be at a convention for the idol fest. This convention knows that idol fests bring in a crowd, and that's the only reason they had us, to bring in more money for them.
Yes, you heard that right. Feel free to rewind the video if you need to hear that again. So they were going overtime because of the con's own screw-ups, and Cresselia had to cut a song from their performance, only to still end up going overtime, and they, along with other idols, were hit with a massive $5,000 fine by the con for going overtime. So the con made these idols perform late due to the lack of information and communication, which is entirely on the fault of the people running the con, only to punish these idols for going overtime, despite the only reason they even went overtime was because the people running Weebcon were apparently boofing stupid serum and were forced to rush a show even though they tried to do their best to perform given their time frame. This alone should be enough to show just how delusional the people running this con are. But we've just hit the main course, and now for dessert, this crab-flavored sundae with whipped cream and a cherry on top.
And I didn't even mention what happened with the Discord server, so I'm going off script now, I'm sorry. I mean, can you really blame me after such a hot mess? I was a part of the Discord server, and in the Discord server, they had a feedback and ideas channel. Now, I hadn't spoken much within this Discord server. I will put the messages on screen now of what I said. You can pause to read them. Basically, I said, the way that you treated the idols, you treated us like garbage. Why would you have us if you didn't want us? It was because of this message that I got banned from the server, and it wasn't just me. There are so many people now that are getting banned from this Discord server because they're speaking out on behalf of the idols and everybody else who was treated horribly. So...
Yes. The classic strategy when someone holds you accountable for your misdeeds. Rather than actually accepting the ugly truth that they treated their guests like garbage, they're apparently silencing people who speak out about it. I'm not even surprised, honestly, because with how bad this looks for Weebcon, it makes sense that they would do everything they can to silence anyone who dares speak against their con, for treating their own guests like how Take-Two Interactive treats anyone who mods GTA 5 when they find a way to keep themselves entertained rather than to pay them shark card money in the game they already bought and paid for.
In conclusion, actually this time, fuck Weebcon. They don't care about you. They don't care about the attendees. They don't care about anyone who works for them. They just care about making as much money off of you as they can while providing you with a subpar convention experience. So, if you're someone who actually cares about the people that help put on the show at these conventions, please do not go to Weebcon next year. Do not support them. These people do not care about you. There are so many other amazing conventions to go to around Texas. So please, if you care about idols, if you care about the attendees, if you care about the volunteers, please do not support Weebcon. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. On a serious note, if you guys have any questions, concerns, anything at all, please feel free to comment them down below. I will try my best to get to everything. This weekend was crazy, to say the least. So I'm really trying to hold it together. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. Thank you for listening.
Like I said in the start, I'll leave you a link to the full video on TikTok to those who want to watch the original. But Cresselia said it best. If you really care for the people who make these kind of events possible at cons, then do not attend Weebcon next year. These guys are the Take-Two Interactive convention that shows us to be nothing more than greedy scumbags who will do whatever they can to nickel and dime their guests, for absolutely nothing in return. Keep in mind that was one of the more major stories I covered. There are so many more stories out there that I couldn't possibly fit in this video, so I'll be releasing another video where I release more information of people's grievances with the con, with some of them being as old as from Weebcon 2023. I'll be releasing the audio of Weebcon attendees that were extremely kind to spare me their time so I can interview them about this terrible convention, including she herself. But in the end, Weebcon are greedy scumbags who don't care about you, the idols, or anyone actually gives their con meaning. All they really care about is making money. Take their money away by boycotting Weebcon 2026 next year, and once they lose their money, things will change real quick. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Monostar Slapnuts Leatherknuckles signing off. Happy killing!